Well, good morning to you, Tony Virtue speaking, Virtue and Partners, and welcome to our monthly update. And what a difference a few weeks made. You know, at the end of December, the world looked a bad place. If you look at the graphs below there, both our own domestic market and the US market, roughest quarter they'd had in 8 years. And here we are, 7 weeks later, and we made that back plus a bit more, which is a little bit frustrating if you're in and out of the market. That's not our go, as you know. So we just sort of chugged along, and as you can see from the graphs, importantly, the actual income from companies, the dividends, hadn't changed particularly over that period of time. Just shows the impact of sentiment and momentum. You know, why do these things happen? Well, I think in the US there was a concern they might lift interest rates more than what they needed to. Now they backtracked on that. It's looking unlikely, looking at the yield curve now, that they'll do much for the foreseeable future. In Australia, I think the Royal Commission did have an overlap on the market, and if you look to the next graph, you can see when they actually issued their report that the Westpacs of this world are up 8.5% in the first hour and a half of trading. Conversely, mortgage choice down 30%. So the market had worked out that in relation to distribution of mortgage products, that probably wasn't the best advice. The long and the short of it, after the political sort of push and shove, is both sides of politics have agreed really the current status quo is probably the best way to go. We have a significant mortgage business. Around 60% of mortgages are sold via advisors such as ourselves. As a guide, we generally get about 75 basis points cheaper than dealing with the banks direct. The actual maths on that was that the banks were on paper going to get a $2.6 billion free kick. That equated to $40 billion worth of market capitalisation, and that's why Westpac jumped 8.5% in that first hour and a half. So somebody was on the know, obviously, and they're doing a bit of a checkup on that now. And we're now moving very much into caretaker mode at the federal level. I think they've only got 2 more days between now and the election where they're actually going to sit. So how do I get a job like that? So I think April the 2nd we're going to get the budget, and we're told we're in surplus for the first time in 12 years. And then the opposition will be able to have their say. And then we're looking at a federal election late May. The net effect of that is people will be naturally cautious, looking at polls, trying to double guess, I guess, where the world will be. There are big changes in the Labour manifesto. We've spoken about this before. Issues such as disallowing franking credits to our self-managed funds when people are in that retirement phase and don't have any other income. They spent their entire life building up their wealth to be self-sustaining. It is unfair, and obviously we're fighting on that. Issues such as reducing capital gains exemptions, issues such as tightening up on negative gearing, all of which will require us to make some active decisions. I think the market does front run a little bit, and in part one of the reasons that property's been off in Sydney and Melbourne is front running those possibilities. That said, as I look at the property market at the moment, we had better auction rates the last 2 weeks here. I can tell you that APRA have loosened up a bit with the banks, who've loosened up with us, who've loosened up with the customers. So we are actually being able to release more money for investment purposes, and really the banks are well able to determine who they want to lend money to and at what rate. I don't think they need the dead-handed government to help them. So that should improve things somewhat, but to some extent people will be naturally cautious until we can see where the election ends up. 3 months away now, and don't forget that the Senate really does control things, so what you say and what you do in these political things is not always the same thing. So look, the volatility has come out of the markets at the moment. We're looking for just some stable performances just through the earnings season, interim earnings, which were solid enough. Some of the larger companies, notably Rio last night, are issuing massive special dividends to get these franking credits across to you prior to the election. A Flight Centre, a massive amount of money. So the intent being that, you know, if there's going to be a problem getting those francs across to you, let's get them out before the election rather than dripping them out afterwards. So it'll be a busy time for us as we come towards that phase. We're keeping longer and longer hours here. It's pretty obvious these days that Saturday morning can be as busy as a work day now, and we want to be available to you when you're fresh. You can make decisions without having the additional stress of work. So Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday mornings, we're definitely open for business, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Tony Virtue when experience pays.